Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit that bell. You get notified whenever we drop a video. Obviously, that's Monday mornings at 9 a.m. for the most part. This episode and the whole season of the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Whether you like it mild or hot, chunky or cantina style, the people over at Two Men have you covered. You're asking, Zach, why Two Men in a Garden? They're a 100% St. Louis company. Not only are they local, but they have opened up their production facility to local food entrepreneurs. They run a kitchen that you can rent out if you are looking to create a product for the supermarket. They love St. Louis the way I do. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomeninthegarden.com. Follow them on social at Two Men Salsa. That's on Insta and Twitter. Peter, it's the new year. It's 2023. This has to be. I need this one to be my year. The vibes have been quite poor though. To end 2022, specifically talking about Billiken athletics, there's also a lot to look back on with fondness. Not necessarily even just Billiken athletics, but as a SLU community. I think as a SLU fan community, a lot to look back on.
I think being a Billikens fan is the ultimate lesson in you're never just going to have one year that's all good or all bad. It's always going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. We're always going to be a little bit of an underdog. There are things that are going to go beyond our expectations. There are things that are going to disappoint us. And that's how it is. It is a shame that some of the, as you say, vibes lately have not been great, here at the end of the year. Tough loss in men's basketball, some other stuff off the field with different programs going on. That's been a little, not great, but again, you're right. There is a lot to look back on this year and still be happy about, still be proud of.
Yeah, I think first off, the biggest news of the year, and I want to go off the field first. Humphrey's reopening. This was something that I know we were excited about. West Pine Bills was excited about. Everybody on Billikens.com was excited about. SLU Twitter. It was just everybody was pumped up. And I think on behalf of the Billiken fan community, I think we need to we owe a giant thank you to Sarah Sanders Davis and John Harris. Those are the two business partners that faithfully recreated a SLU staple, and it took them 2 years of tireless work to do so, Pete.
Yeah, it's incredible too to walk in there. I cannot. I know I said it, a few weeks ago, but I cannot overstate the feeling I got walking in there and just being transported back, 15, 20 years ago all over again. Well, maybe not 20 years quite, but it's incredible. They did a pretty faithful restoration of that place too. It's like cleaner and nicer. Yes. And like better in a lot of ways. But they didn't like wash off any of the charm of the place either. It's right. Still Humphreys. It's not like some, corporate whitewashed version of what Humphreys was. No,
and I think it's funny. I kind of thought about it like, it's kind of like, remember in the Titanic when they first go into the, like, where they go back to when the ship is all new. Like, it's kind of like that, the color washes over. I think that was in the Titanic. The color washes over and everything comes back to life. I think that was it. Maybe I'm thinking of some other movie. But it's one of those scenes where they go into history and it goes from black and white to like full color. It was kind of like that walking in.
I think you're right. I'm never prepared to speak to any of your movie references, but they're normally things I've not seen in 25 years. But regardless, I think you've got it right, and I know what you're trying to say, and I agree completely. They did a great job with it. I haven't eaten there yet, but I'm told the food's pretty good too. From what I'm hearing, and they've got more than just Bud Light, but that's all I've had there so far, for old time's sake. So kicking it old school when I go in there.
They're doing a slightly modified version of penny pitchers. They're not selling, every pitcher in the joint. They've kind of limited it to a certain amount of pitchers. And you got to get in there and get one early, but you always did. But they said the place. I mean, and of course, when I say this is not. People got to remember this isn't what it wasn't. The Mangelsdorfs who they sold it. So
right.
They said it was an absolute disaster when they got in there. Like it was disgusting. It was it hadn't been touched in 2 years. But they said the bones were fine. Like it was,
right.
Everything was great on it. That like stability wise and all that. But they said it was a mess.
I remember when it was first purchased by whoever owned it in the meantime, basically was sitting on the property to try and flip it. It didn't really go to their plans. But I remember some of the designs they drew up just to pretend that they were going to do something with it. I'm glad that never happened though, but it is a shame that they let it sit idle for 5 years or whatever. That's a real bummer.
And you knew they weren't going to do anything with it when they started.
Yeah, no,
when they started selling off the all of the memorabilia, which was really sad.
Yeah,
I think that was kind of depressing. I think you mentioned earlier that mixed bag, and I think what SLU fans are starting to come around to is that if you really want to continuously have an entertaining SLU experience as it pertains to the Billikens, I think you got to be a men's soccer and women's soccer fan.
Absolutely. I mean, I always feel like if you go to SLU, you already got to pay attention to those programs because they're special programs. There's a lot of history there, and we're not a football school. That's our homecoming game. It's our identity. Whether you're into soccer or not, I mean, it's definitely it's there. It's an institution. And yeah, I mean, men's soccer again wins the A10 championship. Make it to the NCAA second round. They only go out in a close game against the eventual runner-up in the country. The men's soccer is back, and they're in really good shape. And this is going to be the program to beat in the A10 for a long time.
Yep. NCAA tournament second round. We got a really nice kind of old school matchup between the Billikens and the Hoosiers there. That was fun. Didn't turn out the way I don't think anyone wanted, but so be it. Indiana went to the final. So you can say you lost to the runner-up. I think you'll take that, especially with the roster turnover they had. On the women's side, 5-time A10 champions, NCAA tournament for the 5th time in a row. Katie Shields, I can't say much more.
No, and they broke like every program record on the way. This season. It's incredible. Wins, goals, goal margin, just anything. Shutouts, right? They got shutouts. Just about everything you could do in the course of a season for the program. It is a shame things ended so early. I know they had more to give us, more to show. We know how special that program is, and it's I'm sorry that 8 of them are moving on. They won't get another shot next season to do it again. But again, just like with the men's program, I mean, even more so with the women's program, the A10 title goes through St. Louis for the foreseeable future. And can't say enough good things about that program and what they're doing.
Speaking of soccer, I think on the podcast side, I think we owe a big thank you to those who really made our fall soccer heavy content extremely popular. And I think that includes, we owe a thank you to the teams. But also beyond that, the women's soccer players, their families that listen, as well as the men's soccer players and their families, and as well as men's soccer and women's soccer fans that maybe aren't as basketball heavy fans as we are.
It's great. It's nice when I love the feeling of like, somebody either pops up in our mentions or otherwise, like they run into you at an event and say something. I'm always surprised by who is listening and how often and why and all of those things. And it seems like soccer was kind of the door in for a lot of people this season, and that's great. And I hope they stick with us. I hope they're SLU athletic department fans through and through, like they're rooting for all the programs and not just soccer. But at the same time, we're happy any amount of listens, people who pop in for one episode or whatever, people who are parents and they're only going to listen, maybe while their kid is playing at SLU or whatever. Grateful for everybody who listens and happy that, I think we do the right thing by covering every program and offering, fans of the non-men's basketball, program, something to, there's not much media coverage for those other things. So the fact that we're doing it, I think is cool. And that it has become kind of a two-way conversation for a lot of these sports. And I really like that and excited to see where that goes in the future.
Definitely thank you to those in the athletic department that have supported this show and have appreciated what we're doing and made it known to us that they do appreciate. Of course, we're talking about explicitly Katie Shields for coming on the show, Kevin Kalish, even though that was actually in I believe 2021, but Rebecca Tillett for hopping on the show. It's tough to come in the way she did, and have the stones to come on the show. Like,
yeah,
I mean, we're not gotcha we're not gotcha people here. But at the same time, you've got a fan base that's like, whoa, like what? And Rebecca Tillett still, came on the show and answered our questions as to the best of her ability. And God bless her for that.
Yeah, she was great. She gave us an hour. And I mean, not to mention, we've had Phil Forte, Travis Ford came on another time. It's been great. Coach Hendrickson, Coach Bell, with track and field and cross country. It's over time to see that what we're doing is being noticed and that people appreciate it and we appreciate them. I think it's a good cycle for all of us, because we obviously love the program and not just the individual pieces of it, but we care about all of it and are excited to tell their stories and let them tell their stories too.
One, I think the funniest part of my notes here is the next part. And that's the special thanks to Bob Ramsey. There's not a single person in St. Louis Billiken, the St. Louis Billiken community that has championed us as much as, for their visibility, right? There are a bunch of our listeners that champion us constantly on Twitter, but as far as visibility and people that are well known within the Billiken community, there's not a single person that has tweeted at us more than Bob Ramsey or replied to us or retweeted or liked. It's been Bob the whole time. And I mean, he's been incredibly complimentary when I've got to talk to him and supportive and just keep doing what you're doing. And God damn it, I cannot thank Bob Ramsey enough.
And it wasn't this year that he came on the show, but he has come on before.
Yes.
The fact that he knows who we are is amazing. The fact that he cares enough to interact with us, come on the show, whatever it is thrilling. He's somebody whose voice I've been listening to for a long time.
Yeah.
Got to know him a little bit when I was a manager with the program. And it's so great to have him supporting us in that way. Like you said, it's just really exciting.
Of course, we mentioned our guests and we mentioned coaches specifically, but I mean, we had Cam Redding, Simon Betcher, Emily Nichols, Toby Gillen. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, all of the basketball recruits. Thank you for coming on the show. I mean, we wouldn't have, episodes in the mid 200s if they didn't, retweet, share the show with their friends and family and people in their community. So thank you for keeping our show going mostly in the summer too.
And relevant,
exactly.
Lindsay Heckel, Johnny Klein, most recently. And
Yes.
Klein, there were some like St. Louis City SC fan accounts.
Yeah.
One of them's like recruiting or I can't remember exactly what it was, retweeting like our show. And, so as those fan bases grow, we're kind of getting noticed when we have people on like that too. And it like you said, it drives numbers, but it's also it's just it's cool to get to know these people a little bit, hear what they're all about, and be able to feature them. I really like that aspect of this.
Yeah, I think one of the really not overlooked. I don't want to say overlooked, but I want to say one of the things that maybe has gone under the radar has been the emergence of Colin Surrey and his role with Billiken women's volleyball, women's basketball, baseball, and softball. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch him completely elevate these broadcasts on ESPN Plus. He's just fantastic.
He is. And I mentioned it last show about how good it was to hear him when I walked in the arena doing the women's game. And he's really good. Like you, it just immediately, he's got a good voice. Everything about his delivery is really good. He's got an endless amount of facts that he dips into and slow moments. He really, I think coming up in baseball has given him a skill set that maybe people who start in other sports don't develop as quickly because they're just so focused on the play-by-play and a little bit quicker action. But he's got a really unique skill set that he's constantly polishing by doing so many different sports for SLU and McHenry and who else is he doing locally, like Webster?
I'm not sure. I
But
have to
regardless,
check, but I definitely know McHenry.
Yeah, so regardless, I mean, he's really he's developing very quickly, and I really hope that he gets noticed by some of the bigger local broadcasting affiliates, because I think he's a real talent, and it would be a shame to lose him, but man, I think he's got a real future.
It needs to be. I think the athletic department would be absolutely crazy to not at least put him in the mix for the full-time replacement of Dan McLaughlin on TV. I don't care how young he is. Like, I don't care how inexperienced he is, quote unquote. The dude's a pro, and he's going to go as far as he wants to in that industry.
Give him a few, if I'm one of those
game.
people, give him a couple low stakes kind of,
give him Fordham at home.
Yeah, something like that, where you don't think it's
or an ESPN, like it would be
super high stakes. You need somebody, you've got a couple color commentary guys who can come in. Give him a shot, and I think he'll deliver.
Oh, absolutely. Then the guy, he has the passion, and he has it's crazy. We had 2 buildings put in, or in the process of being built.
One open, one broke ground.
Yes. Champion Center, the O'Loughlin Champion Center, and then the Men's and Women's Soccer Legacy Center. Both of them broke ground this year, and the Legacy Center has obviously already opened, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So those are 2 things that the athletic department has really, they've succeeded in fundraising. They've succeeded in just putting up just really beautiful facilities. And I just would love to see them succeed on the field more. And of course, in other areas, I think.
I hope these facilities aren't the end, that they are 2 more building blocks on the way to a full modern athletics campus. I know we talked a lot in the last show and many other shows, dozens of other shows, about kind of our wish list, and we don't need to get into that now for future facilities, but my hope is that they don't open the Champion Center and think we've done it, we've got it, because I still think there's a way to go. But these are great, and I think they've become essential in having a nationally competitive full suite of athletic programs.
Let's jump right in it to men's basketball, Peter. 83-78 win at St. Joe's, Saturday, 12/31. Pete, I got to ask you, how much did you miss Philadelphia A-10 officials?
What an amazing feeling to watch this game and be like, oh, I forgot about this. It's been almost a year, and you're just like, man, this is what it's like to play in the A10 on the road. Like
and Philly's the worst.
There's something about it. You're right. It's very weird. It's just weird. It's inconsistent. We have not, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back right now, because this season, for all the things that have kind of been a little off from our expectations, we haven't spent much time talking about officiating at all. Like, we've barely brought it up. So yes, pat yourself on the back. I know a lot of SLU fans have this perpetual victim complex of, we go into every gym and they get home cooking, and we come home and we do not, at the very best, we get neutral officiating. I know so many people have said that constantly, whether it's right or wrong, but oh man, there's something different about going into St. Joe's or LaSalle or whatever. And you're just like, what is happening? Who are these guys?
I'll tell you what my theory is. You want my theory?
Go for it.
I think Philadelphia college basketball is like New York pro basketball. It's kind of, I just think they have such a civic pride in their college basketball that, I mean, these guys aren't, I don't know how much we're getting travel refs for the A10. Like, how many local guys?
When you look at
or gals,
Yeah, when you look at the concentration of D1 programs in the Northeast, you don't have to go far to make a year's worth of ref money without traveling out of the Northeast.
It's like being a soccer ref in England.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be working games in the NEC and the MAAC and the Ivy, and like a lot of just conferences that not necessarily a lot of people outside of the region are paying attention to a lot. But if you can get A10 games, that pay a little bit more, maybe even Big East games, who knows? But there are so many colleges up there that you're right. I bet there are a lot of people who do not necessarily fly much, if at all, and still make it a full season reffing college basketball.
I mean, you could conceivably do 4 games in a day. Or no, sorry, 4 games in a weekend. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you'd be allowed to do 4 in a day, but you absolutely, I mean, if you scheduled yourself for like a noon and an 8
Saturday game
back to back, you absolutely could.
You could do a Friday night game, do a noon Saturday game, a 7 p.m., noon and 7 on Saturday, and then a 3 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah, you absolutely could do that.
So you know what? Like, I mean, honestly, I don't know how Gibson Jimerson fouled out in this one, and I tweeted about it, and then we had somebody replied that he was getting beat on defense. Like, I don't care. Like, you can't call that rebounding foul on Gibson Jimerson.
There were,
what was the foul? No, it wasn't a rebounding foul. It was a positioning foul.
There was one where he was like straight up on defense, and he like, and there was another one. They tried to exploit mismatches like off the switches on him. But I looked up and saw he had 4 fouls. I was like, no way. I thought he had 2. It just didn't make sense. I think you said, has he ever fouled out in his life? Like dating back to grade school, he's just not a guy who would foul out.
He was trying to front a guy and they called a foul for him. How do you foul a guy fronting a guy?
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah. Especially like just how inconsistently that was called. But I mean,
physicality was inconsistently called. I mean, I literally, like, there were so many plays where they're like, it just felt like it was one of those, I don't want to call that one.
Yeah. Or just tightening it up. It's almost like,
it got real tight.
Coming out of halftime or coming out of certain media timeouts. It's like they talk to each other and they're like, okay, we better tighten this up. And it's a jarring experience for fans. But I mean, like, bottom line, an A10 road win is an A10 road win. But man, Zach, this felt like it should have been a bigger win. I know you and I have a little bit different feeling about that, and you're happy to just get out of there with this one. Get
on the bus and get to Amherst, Massachusetts as quickly as possible before.
I think they fly home and then back.
No, one Wednesday.
I'm almost positive.
Oh my God, I would not.
I think they'll fly back.
Ew.
Well, because this was a noon game, right? So they could be back in St. Louis well before, the ball drops or whatever on New Year's Eve. And
Did
then
not see them at Humphreys on New
good,
Year's Day. Yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah.
But I know,
Happy
I
to
mean,
report.
I saw, their Instagram post about they were all getting off the plane. I don't think they would have gone right to UMass on Saturday, and then they're there until after the game won. That's a long time.
I mean, they did talk about how to get better on the road.
Maybe. I mean, that's a lot of time in
It
hotel.
is, and there's no school. There's no school.
That's
so
true.
Why fly back?
Maybe, maybe they just really like the Berkshires this time of year. But regardless, I mean, I just think like this was for a while we did have a double-digit lead.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this probably should have been a double-digit win. I know, yes, an A10 road game, there are so many variables, and you don't hold them to the same standard you would at home, but this is not a good team, Zach, this St. Joe's team.
No, they're not. I thought, I wonder, so I have it later in the notes. And I think we can get it. I'll just bring it up now. I don't understand why Travis takes out Yuri Collins when we get a multi-possession lead. So it's like we had like a 6-point lead. I want to say either late first half or mid second half.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did not understand, like, why take him out there? Why not try to extend the lead there on the next possession? Why not try to get a stop and then see if you, like, I don't understand why, if you can push it to 8, I mean, push it to 8. Okay. If you don't get a stop in the next one, okay, take him out. Like, but try to get that next stop. Like, it wasn't like we had sat on a 6-point lead for a minute. It was, we had just gotten that 6-point lead and then he comes out.
So when would you take him out? I guess is what I'm wondering, because
I have no idea. Like I play him 40 minutes, but that's me.
I'm trying to look at his minutes right now, and of course they're not giving me a minutes per game on the official site, but if you're like, I'm looking at his minute totals here, and he's basically in the mid-high 30s all season long. His low, he's played 30 minutes twice. And every other game he's played 33 or more, 33 to 39 minutes. So you're only taking him out for a few minutes a game. So I'm kind of wondering, when would you? And I think if I'm for it, I'm not looking at it necessarily like we've got a lead, this is where I can give him a breather. I'm probably trying to take him out for a minute or two, 3 or 4 times a game. And I'm going to try and make it the last minute and a half before the next media timeout whistle, right? So I'm going to try and extend his sitting through the media timeout so that he can come back in after a media timeout, having only sat 1 or 2 minutes at a time. And I'm not necessarily worried about, am I doing that with a lead? Am I doing that from behind? Is this a close one? Like what the situation is. I'm just trying to be strategic about giving him a little bit of rest, because otherwise you're right. I am trying to get him to as close to 40 minutes as possible. Because it's just what this team is. It's just, we revolve around him. That's just who we are. So, you're right. I mean, I do notice that he gets taken out when we do have a little bit of a lead going, but it does seem to be a momentum killer.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't have a better answer other than he's probably more comfortable doing it than if all of a sudden, like say St. Joe's was on a run and all of a sudden they're up 4 and then 6 and Yuri's on the bench. Well, now you're rushing him back in before you wanted to. So I think it's just hope for the best with him on the bench while you've got a little bit of a lead, rather than try and make up a deficit or something like that. The shame of it is we can't give him more breaks when we're up 10, 15, 20, 25 points, as we should have been a lot more this season.
And maybe that's your, this is a game where you try for that, right? Like, I think, again, there's your point.
Right. Like play him the whole first half. Don't take him out. Play him that whole first 8 minutes or so of the second half, and hope now you've got a situation where it's 15, 17 points and it feels like it's out of hand.
Exactly. But then again, I don't want to bring up the demons of 2022, but against a certain team from across the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. West Pine Bills kind of said it best here, Pete. We didn't learn much about the SLU in this one.
Yeah, I think that feels about right. We knew St. Joe's was not very good.
Right.
But we didn't know how SLU was going to respond after that SIUE game. It just this doesn't really tell us much either way. It's kind of an unsatisfying game in that regard. Had we blown them out, it would have been, here is our decisive response to that game.
Mm-hmm.
Had we lost this game, it would have been like, wow, we're a lot worse than we thought. Trust me, I'm not rooting for that. But when you win an ugly game by a little bit against a bad team, you just kind of go, was the road? Was this the combination of road and refs and everything else that goes into a game? I really don't know. So yeah, we don't know much more about SLU in this one. They just didn't play great here. They yet again failed to put an inferior team away.
Right.
They were loose with their perimeter defense, especially early on. They struggled to guard the pick and roll, especially Javante Perkins, and gave Obina, the big guy, a ton of open dunks with Okoro having to overhelp. They turned it over too much. They didn't shoot it well from outside. And they're not going to win at places like Dayton and VCU if they play like this, and probably not Loyola or Davidson or some of the next tier kind of places either, even with those teams down from kind of their normal level of quality. So that's kind of what scares me here is we only have a couple other A10 road games that are kind of at this level or worse, of teams that we absolutely should and will, as far as I'm concerned, beat on the road. Everybody else is a little tougher, including, even arguably the next team, UMass, with a first-year coach. They're a little bit better than St. Joe's. So we can't be this, I don't know, sloppy from here on out.
No, we can't. And I think, the way we've sat here and talked about road games and non-conference road games specifically, and just kind of a lot of lamenting about our road woes the past, just say it, under Travis Ford. I think we just take this one and get on.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimerson obviously needed this game.
Yeah.
22 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 3 of 9 from 3. Again, fouled the out for some reason. I have no idea how.
Mm-hmm.
But he's back on track scoring wise. And it was one of those things, when you play like a yard game, like washers or cornhole or one of those, and you've got to you step up for the first time and you shoot or you throw and it goes way long. So the next time you back up a couple, a step, and then you're right on the hole. That's Jimerson. I felt like in this one, because the shot he made was like an NBA 3.
He was on the Hawks wing.
Yeah.
There were definitely feathers under his feet when he made that one.
But yeah, it was one of those where because he was shooting strong.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a lot to love about this kind of game from Yuri Collins. Somebody mentioned, I think West Pine Bills said it was a quiet 15 assists.
It really was. He didn't try and do too much scoring wise. I mean, he really was just a facilitator in this one. I think the only shot he took until late in the second half was that wide open 3 in the first half that he missed. That again, defenses were happy to give him.
Yeah.
But I just think he's so much better when he is facilitating and not trying to take on that scoring load. He finished with 15 assists, like you said, only 1 turnover too. And then he passed that 700 assist mark for his career. So he wound up with 2 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals in addition to those 15 assists. I would take this game from him every day, and instead of a game where we see him in double-digit field goal attempts. I think he, everything clicks better when he's moving the ball. and not trying to go up against bigs in the lane or whatever.
Yeah, I think the assists are great when you don't recognize them, that they're happening, because that means he's within the flow of the game. He's not out there hunting assists or trying to be that guy that has to make the final pass.
Right.
And again, you mentioned trying to be a scoring threat, and I thought his decision in the one bucket he made was like the most perfectly timed assertion of his scoring ability of the season. I mean, it was like, I think it was one of those, I think every Billiken fan said, all right, Yuri, you're up. Like, well, when he had the ball there, everybody could see that was the moment, and Yuri saw it. And it's much harder for the player to see it on the court than us fans.
He's got to be an opportunistic scorer.
Yes.
I hate nothing more than when he's shooting on back-to-back possessions. Yes. Like, don't be predictable. If you've been passing for an entire half and all of a sudden you've got some room, take it. Like, don't that's who he's got to be. And that was just that. It was a smart bucket.
It was almost kind of, him and Parker kind of have similar kind of decision-making issues when it comes to their shot location. Yuri will fall in love with the three, or he'll fall in love with trying to get to the hoop for contact. But and I thought in the SIUE game, he didn't pull up and take that mid-range hardly at all. And it seems that when he is at his best scoring, it is from that pull-up jumper at the elbow or closer.
Right. I mean, I think he took 10 2-pointers in that SIUE game, and most of them were layup attempts. And then I think he was 1 for 3 from outside, if memory serves. But yeah, I just want to see him be opportunistic in this, in games.
Anything that truly concerned you in this one?
I mean, there's, I have written down a few questions here. Concerned, I think if at a high level, two of the questions I'm asking here are, should we be playing more zone? And then this isn't necessarily my question. I've seen a lot of other people bring this up. Should a Forrester be playing more minutes or even starting over Okoro at this point? Yeah. It seems like their fortunes have kind of, shifted a little bit. So I think those would be kind of two of the main questions I'm taking out of this game.
Javon Pickett, did he turn? I'm gonna throw a question out there and then I'm gonna answer it for you. Did Javon Pickett turn in the worst 20-point performance possible? No, that was the 2009 St. Louis Billikens at George Washington. Peter.
Yeah, but for an individual, this was a game that so much of the game he just kind of stunk, and yet he ends up with 20 points. I mean, if Yuri had a quiet 15, Pickett had a silent 20.
Yeah, it came down to him closing out the game for us.
He really did. It's kind of amazing. He got, yeah, you're right. He got a lot of those in the second half. He was really bad in that first 4 minutes before the first media timeout. I think he had multiple turnovers, multiple misses. Just a rough start. Yeah, so I don't know what's quite going on with him because he was so solid early on for us. And then one other kind of footnote here is Larry Hughes Jr. played a little bit in the first half. He was great offensively, maybe left a little to be desired defensively. But this cameo kind of suggests that maybe we should see him a little more often.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I think the defense left to be desired was less about his one-on-one defense and more about finding his man, which I'm kind of guessing is why he hasn't been featured as a freshman. Not necessarily featured, but included as a freshman. But when he did find his man, he was very, very good. I won't say very, very good. He was very good. And I absolutely want to see him more. I mean, it was awesome to see him, be wide open for the three, and knock it down, because that's one of those, you could see where if he misses that, it just, the game goes another way for the next 2-3 minutes.
I think so. And Ford, your minutes always come from your defense. So he's got to clean that up, but it's reassuring that he looks this comfortable offensively. Also wanted to note that Sion Medley, who SLU has signed, point guard out of Camden, New Jersey, was there in the house. I know he was excited to see Yuri's 700th assist. He said he put that on social media. So that was cool. And it's just good to see. He's a signed recruit, so the program actually could include him in like an Instagram post and everything. It's different than if he were not signed and just committed or something like that. But it's great to see him there. He still seems very much on board. He plays for an incredible high school team with some of the, top recruits in the country, like DJ Wagner, for example. So definitely he's gonna be playing some high level competition this year. And I think they have faith in him as the next point guard of this program taking over. But anyway, wish it could have been a better game for him to see, but glad to see him hanging out with the program, hanging out in Philly with him.
Pete, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the zone defense that this Billiken team can put out there. I have my reasons why maybe we can't play zone as much as we should or could or need to. But I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to these two questions that I brought up. I think this game in particular, we came into it knowing St. Joe's, they chuck it, right? Like they're going to press a little bit, they're going to trap, they're going to try and force turnovers, and then offensively they shoot a ton of threes. And I don't know if I want to sit. Not necessarily that a zone is sitting back, but I don't necessarily want to give them an excuse to just fire away every possession, because we saw they can heat up. They're a really streaky team, but they can heat up. They're capable of it. They have guys like Reynolds who are capable of getting really hot. Or the guy who kind of killed us was Cam Brown. He was the sole reason they were in the game most of the time, aside from Obina's wide open dunks. So I don't necessarily love this game, the St. Joe's game, for a zone. But that said, I think we've looked good in a zone when we've deployed it, like against Drake fairly recently. And I think UMass is one of those teams. They don't shoot many threes. They don't make many threes. That's a team that I actually wouldn't mind us throwing some zone at. And maybe not starting the game in it, but I'd like to see that for several minutes in the first half in that game. Is kind of where I'm at. I want to see us rolling that out more often. I don't think it has to be our primary defense, but I do think it's a look that we're capable of playing well in. And I don't know if you agree there, or if, there are some people I've seen on Twitter or message boards or whatever saying, just go to a zone full time. But I don't necessarily agree with that.
No, I think if we had Hassan French and Jordan Goodwin out there, absolutely go to a zone full time. I think the issue is our rebounding. Our rebounding is terrible. Well, our rebound looks terrible. It doesn't necessarily show on the box score. It's kind of a weird thing. I've said it many times.
It needs work. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think when you're in a zone, it makes rebounding tougher. I think that's always been kind of that's always the knock on the zone, right? You're not guarding man to man. Therefore, you can't just turn around and box out. And we stink at boxing out. So I mean, well, then again, now that I'm talking it out, sure. Can't box out anyway. Who cares? Why put us in a position to box out? We get pushed around anyway.
So roll with the zone then for at least longer stretches.
I just talked myself into something that I didn't believe in the first place. I'm literally ready to get on the show, or not on the show, but get to that question and be like, no, hell no, we don't play zone because we can't rebound. And then I'm like, wait a minute, we can't rebound. Why even worry about it?
Right.
Forrester over Coro. Speaking of rebounding, I thought he was unbelievable in this one. He really started to show that, not quite as polished offensive as far as not quite as efficient offensive. And nobody is going to be as efficient as Martin Linson was. but he showed that finesse game that I think Martin Linson brought, and just really being able to kind of get to the hoop and finish soft with skill and finesse.
He had a couple takes where he was kind of high in the paint, around the A10 logo, and then just made some really nice moves to get to the basket. Really athletic, long stride, knowing kind of how to use his space and his timing and finish. It was really impressive. I mean, anybody who can finish. I think I also tweeted in this game, Okoro has become a master of catching the ball down low in position and either pivoting or dribbling himself into worse position before he misses a shot. That's frustrating. I mean, that's I don't know if it's just not good instincts, quite frankly. I don't think I'm yet at the point where I would say start Forrester over Okoro.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I've kind of talked about or read about recently, seen with my own eyes as well, Gates at Mizzou, and I hate to use Mizzou as a positive comparison. He's a first-year coach, relatively young guy, new team, so I know that's part of it. When he talks to his players, you could see he's got a really positive, uplifting demeanor, a lot of very positive body language. You could tell he's not, I don't know, berating guys, breaking them down.
We both talked about this.
Yeah, so we talked about before with Okoro and kind of the short leash thing and how I don't like that and how you need to play him longer stretches. But maybe you do even out the minutes over the course of a game with Forrester a little bit more. They're looking more like 1A and 1B instead of 1 and 2. But I still think Ford shouldn't be yanking Okoro for mistakes, chewing guys out, things like that. He has a lot of players who are in their third, fourth, fifth years of college basketball, and I just don't think that works with them. One of the points my buddy Joe makes that I think is really smart, because we went through this together in 2004, 2005, is you can really lose a core veteran group who are they're in their senior year or whatever, and they're looking at the next step. If things start not going well, they've got one foot out the door, and mentally they're just gone. You can really lose your veterans if you kind of don't play them right. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be like coddled and uplifted all the time. I mean, these guys are in their 20s and they're high level players. They need to know what they're doing wrong. They need to be taught. I get that. I just think Okoro's a guy who's maybe he seems like kind of a quiet, introverted, sensitive kind of guy who I think you gotta kind of be careful with him.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw him on the bench for Forrester. It's a really long answer of saying that. But I do, we're not playing those guys at the same time. I think there are ways to give Forrester more opportunity without being like, Okoro, you screwed up, you're out, kind of thing. So it's a tough situation to manage, but I think you can kind of get more productivity out of the five by evening out their minutes a little bit and making sure, Okoro isn't being punished for mistakes necessarily.
Hold on to your hats, Billiken fans. I am going to throw out 2 movie references in one explanation here. I think, first of all, Travis Ford needs to take the video of Josh Lucas and Glory Road as Don Haskins talking to Big Daddy David Lattin and just tell Okoro to put his damn elbow in the rim. Dude, just be an absolute monster. I don't care. Intimidate, be physical, throw people around. I don't care if you that's how I want him to play, because you've got Smash and then you've got Dash in Forrester. I want Okoro to be the meanest mother effer on the court. Just be as physical as you can, but be physical fairly and under the rules. Sure. That's really kind of what I want to see. And I forgot the second reference I had now. So only one reference out of me movie wise. I got way into the Javon pick or the Forrester versus Okoro. I think, I definitely want to see more Forrester, and I want to see kind of putting him in spaces to be that finesse guy.
Yeah.
It's, again, and Okoro, just like go up and try to hammer it. Like, who cares? If you get an offensive foul, just literally catching a ball and trying to go up to the rim. If you lose the ball going up, I don't care. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'd rather you go up right back up with the ball. For God's sakes, both of them use two hands rebounding. Good Lord. I think that's what drives me nuts more than anything. But the bunnies did drive me nuts, where he missed him short, and it was one that he could have, look, dude, just go to the rim. I think it's position, like, not necessarily positioning in a physical sense, but in his head. I don't think he knows where he's at.
I don't know if that's it or not, or if he's just trying to get a clean look. I think he's more worried about a clean look. Whereas I'm like, you shoot free throws as good as any big we've ever had.
Exactly.
Get to the line. Like, you're right. Go at the rim. Make them foul you. You know, 4 times out of 5, it's going to be on the other team and not you. Just go straight up to the rim. Be strong. He's got good length. He's got a lot of strength. He doesn't have an ounce of fat on his body. I mean, he's a really strong, well-built guy. I don't see any reason why he's not punishing opposing defenders more often.
Let's talk about one of the not even necessarily humorous moments in this game, but just freaking annoying. Like, is there, like, I think Lunardi might be the more annoying than Rothstein. Like, but we just,
I won't go
but
that
no,
far.
no. Rothstein is a volume shooter. Rothstein, you only get like, Rothstein is like that guy that would, like, he's like Tyler Ralphs. If we're gonna throw, because we got Bonaventure coming up, he's Tyler Ralph. He's annoying once a year, whereas Rothstein is just constantly just hammering you down to where you're like, oh my God, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
But,
okay, that's true.
So Lunardi, by the way, people are asking, did Larry Hughes Jr. hear this comment? Because Larry Hughes Jr. had a nice little game. But this comment by Lunardi, kind of tell the people that may have kind of had Lunardi on mute.
Larry Hughes Jr. comes into the game, and the first thing Lunardi says is he complains, like, he's like, Larry Hughes Jr., and we all remember his dad here in Philadelphia, drafted number 8 overall in the 1998 draft, taken before players such as Paul Pierce and Dirk Nowitzki, which was just like, oh, come on, man. And Larry Jr., to his credit, it's funny you asked, like, did he hear that? Because right after that, he knocks down that 3, made a couple more nice plays. So Lunardi can't run with it too much, but it's convenient, for a Philly basketball guy to leave out the context that Larry Hughes was drafted to a team alongside Allen Iverson and playing for Larry Brown, who is brutal on rookies. Not to mention, he was drafted in one of the most loaded drafts ever. Yes, Paul Pierce, Dirk Nowitzki, Hall of Famers, but he also went behind tractor trailer Michael Olowokandi, and more Hall of Famers, quite frankly. It was an unbelievable draft, and a guy taken number 8 overall, if you were told he'd play at least a dozen years in the league, you'd be like, yeah, that's a good pick. Just maybe not the best fit, Joe Lunardi. By the way, I used to kind of like Lunardi, but he's gotten a lot more annoying over time. I don't know if it's because there are more and better people doing college basketball. I know it's been said for years that he always has the least accurate or one of the least accurate bracketologies every year. But I don't know what it is. He didn't used to annoy me, and now he really does. And that comment really annoyed me.
Yeah, he was just very smarmy and
oh,
like again, it's that Philly mafia thing, right? That I kind of alluded to, where Philly people take care of their own, and Philly college basketball is better than everywhere else. It's that New York the Mecca, man. It's the Mecca. It's the Garden. It's the Garden, bro. It's the Mecca.
And these guys, I mean, so many of them are living not even in 20, 30 years past. They're living in 40 to 60 years past. I mean,
They're
their
like SLU
sense of
men's
what they
soccer
are.
in a way. Like we kind of live in the past a little bit, right? Like we live in that Ed McCauley a little bit. Like we do it on a smaller scale. Philly
Sure.
people take it like to the moon.
Sure.
So yeah, I think we can wrap a bow on this one, Pete. It wasn't fun. I'm sorry, it wasn't fun.
No,
No.
it wasn't. But we get out of there. We, like you said, we move on.
Yeah, no. I can't. I hate. Like, I wore the right shirt though yesterday. I picked the right garment, and I'm not saying that as a. We are firmly against superstition from fans as a podcast. It is a self-aggrandizing idea that anything you wear or do as a fan, unless you're like in the arena, like as a group distracting a free throw, then you're doing good things.
Right.
Yeah, no, if you want to do it to make yourself feel better, sure, go ahead. But it calms my anxiety sometimes. I put on my Billiken Air Forces and or are they Jordans? I think no, they're Air Forces. I put on my Billiken Air Forces, made me feel a little bit better. Hurt my feet, but what are you gonna do?
Worth it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, tying a bow on the men's basketball 83-78 win at St. Joe's. Gibson Jimerson leads the team with 22 points on 9 of 18, shooting 3 of 9 from 3. Javon Pickett helps close it out after a tough early game with a 20-point performance, including a good string of makes at the free throw line. All right, Pete. We were unable to work it schedule-wise with Stu Ledecky. We reached out to him. Is unable to join this week. Next up on the Billikens schedule is UMass. The Billikens head to Amherst for a Wednesday night game on the 4th. Pete, quite the interesting game between the team we're playing on the 7th and the team we're playing on the 4th that happened on Saturday.
St. Bonaventure hosted UMass and beat them by 19, 83-64. And as we'll hear in our little conversation in the St. Bonaventure preview, Frank Martin didn't have his best day at the Riley Center. I don't know how telling that is for us or not, because these are two teams that are completely new from last season. UMass was coached by Matt McCall, had a much different roster. St. Bonaventure has a completely new roster, despite no coaching change. So these are two teams that are kind of tough as SLU fans to kind of know what they are. In terms of UMass, they're 9-4 now. They were 0-1 in conference after losing that game at St. Bonaventure. They started 7-1 though. One of the hottest teams in the league. Big surprise at the time, but they're 2-3 since. They have wins over Colorado, Murray State, Charlotte. All three of those were in an event, neutral floor. Wins at South Florida, at Harvard, couple of other games, bye games. They've lost against Towson, UMass Lowell, which we joked about a couple weeks ago, and North Texas on a neutral floor as well. This is not a good shooting team, period. They shoot under 42% from the field. I know I'm cursing us. I just have to say it. They shoot mostly inside the arc, but they're in the bottom 10% nationally in efficiency. From 2. They shoot about 17 3-pointers a game, which is not much by today's standard. They make just under 33% of them. They get to the line a decent amount, but they're below average as a free throw shooting team overall. They are, however, a really solid rebounding team, especially on the offensive glass. SLU has to be much tightened up on the defensive glass in this game. Noah Fernandez is back after missing most of December with injury. He just played the Bonaventure game. That was his return game. He hadn't played since I think December 2nd before that. He's been inconsistent this season, but we know what he's capable of. And it's going to be interesting. He's maybe a little limited because of injuries. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that matchup for sure with Collins. Otherwise, production on this team is really spread out. Matt Cross is a junior forward who averages about 11.4 a game and 6.3 rebounds. TJ Weeks, DeAndre Dominguez, RJ Louise, and Isaac Conte all average right about 8 or 9 points a game. So they get a lot of production out of their top 6. Not a whole lot beyond that. They, this is another one, Zach, where on paper, you got to really like, aside from the rebounding thing, this is a team we should beat. Our schedule's weird this year in the A10. Most of the weaker teams we play are up front, but we do start with 2 road games. So I don't quite know what to make of that. And, these are just 2 teams we just aren't going to know very well, but we really should be better than this UMass team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Frank Martin scares the piss out of me.
He's a good coach.
But both physically and like he just looks like he'll kick your ass. Or at least like hold you over the side of the building like you're Vanilla Ice, and he's Suge Knight. But yeah, I think we got to win this one. I think we say that every game though, right?
Yeah, maybe not every game, but yeah, I think this is definitely one. Like St. Joe's, they're a little better than St. Joe's, but this is one where if we play a halfway decent game on the road, we should take this one.
At least Boston refs are not as terrible as Philly refs. So
well, we're out in Amherst,
yes,
Springfield area, so a little west of Boston, but regardless,
a little more it's from the area of like the Tyler. Jesus, I don't know. It's a kind of a gambling area. You know what I mean? It's one of those areas where you're like, is everything kosher in this game? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, looking forward to this one. At least I get to look forward to this one after the St. Joe's game, which I kind of looked forward to St. Joe's because we had 10 days off, and it's just like, can we get another game? We need a palate cleanser, and thankfully we got it. Anyway, so for the same Bonaventure preview, we were lucky enough to get SBUnfurled to come on in and do a preview. So we're going to kick it over to that interview right now. All right, Billiken fans, one thing we did not get to do for the St. Joe's game, and we mentioned on the show, is bring on a podcaster from the visiting team, and unfortunately, Stu Ledecky not available for UMass. So in this episode, we are talking. Well, we're going to preview UMass ourselves, but for Bonaventure, we have SBUnfurled. He is the Baron of the A10 Survivor Pool, which is a very cool contest on Twitter. He's a great A10 follow. Knows his shit when it comes to graphic design and all that really intricate stuff. So SBUnfurled, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Hey, I was just looking up some random stats and I saw that, I don't know if you know this, but Tyler Ralph's career high in points is at St. Louis on, what was it, March 1st, 2008. He scored 25 points. He was 6 of 6 from 3. That was my random stat of the day.
A random stat of the day. I got thrown out of the student section in that game. And all due to that bastard Tyler Ralphs. There's an S on the end.
He was in the Riley Center recently, and he was a good luck charm for us.
Yeah, we heard he was wearing a man purse. Can you confirm or deny?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Was it a Lululemon or Supreme?
He was in the first row, and I was literally in the top corner, the last seat of the Riley Center, because we take in like Jameson, and they don't sell booze at the Riley Center, so we're up in the corner, just taking little shots and stuff. So I couldn't see. I could barely even see him. I could barely even see the court. So I'm not sure what brand it was. I
always assume you'd be in his back pocket.
No.
Thinking about that game, because it was one of the few times you've had success against us, and it's SLU. No, welcome to the show, man. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know there's not much to do up there in Olean, so I we're really doing you a favor. I get that. But
I want to know What do you guys do in St. Louis that we can't do in Ole? Do you like go to plays? Do you go to like the zoo? Are those like what
Yeah,
is there? Because I
we
go to work, I come home, maybe I'll go out to eat, go to Bona
well,
games.
well, we do our food options are more than just like an Applebee's,
You know what?
Burger King.
For being a small town, the one thing Olean does have is a lot of awesome food places. Like the wings here, the burgers, the pizza. Like you can get the one thing that we do have is solid home cooked restaurants.
We both have casinos nearby too.
We do have a casino about 20 minutes away. Nice, yeah.
Drunken bus drivers. We have those here probably.
Yeah,
I think
SLU has a lot of stories, but yeah, the team used to stay at that casino, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so one of the funny kind of side notes to the season is that nobody has any clue who the hell St. Bonaventure are this year, which is a stark contrast to the previous 4 years where we knew exactly what we were going into. Mark Schmidt hated everybody on his bench, adored his starting five. What's going on up there? We obviously it's hard to get a television signal out of Olean, so we haven't been able to take in much Bonaventure basketball.
Well, it looked like it was trending toward another instance where like Schmidt just wasn't going to use the bench at all. Some of our guys were starting to get less and less minutes as conference play approaches, which is kind of what always seems to happen. However, when we just kicked UMass's ass, he played 10 guys. He had 10 guys in there within the first 7-8 minutes. So, and I don't think that's like the other sideline. Frank Martin was doing the same, but it was kind of like he was trying to figure out what the hell was going to work. We were kind of clicking on all cylinders for the first time in a few weeks, and Schmidt was still going toward the bench. So I was pleasantly surprised. It was the best game our bench has played all year. So if you haven't followed Bona's too much this year, if you haven't watched us, we got a couple go-to guys like Daryl Banks, who was at St. Peter's last year. Jan Farrell's really stepping up as a freshman. He's been A10 freshman of the week a couple times, probably will be again next week. Maybe he just had 22 points. Those are go-to guys. I've been pleasantly surprised too with our big men. I thought the 5 spot was going to be super, super weak and that we would struggle against teams like Dayton or St. Louis. We still could, but the 5-man has been better than I thought it would be, mostly because of Chad Venning. He's looked like he could be a serviceable A10 big man coming in from Morgan State. There was like no film on him. No one really had any clue about him or Maxim Madison, who didn't even play at Pitt at all. But we've been Venning was like the player of the game against Notre Dame. He's put on some really good performances. So those are kind of our go-to guys. Everything else is pretty fluid right now with Schmidt.
So how have, like, I'm looking at this roster and it looks like, is this 6 transfers you guys brought in or was it more? It was at least 6.
There isn't anyone on our team right now that played a minute for us last year. So we have Cairo Luke as a transfer, Banks as a transfer, Venning a transfer, Flowers a transfer, a Madison a transfer, Hill a transfer. So yeah, 6 transfers. The rest are freshmen, a couple true freshmen, a couple redshirt freshmen. So that's the makeup. That's what it is this year. And a large part of that too is, our staff planned on some of those guys from last year being back. From everything we've heard, Lofton, Welch, Oshun told the staff, the staff planned to have them back. And it wasn't until a day or two before the deadline that those guys hit the portal, really put the staff in a bad spot last minute. So I think they did a pretty damn good job for having to fill an entire roster in like early May, mid-May. So yeah, we got some A10 caliber guys. We looked good. We looked like shit for a couple weeks, but I'm a little more optimistic now after the UMass game.
How have you guys changed systemically in terms of like what you're running, both offensively and defensively, given that 99% of your minutes are gone? Are you still playing a similar system, would you say, or is it completely different based on the new personnel?
I think it's the same pace, it's the same style. We're still getting in man almost every possession on defense. The thing is, these guys are so new that they don't really have a full grasp of Schmidt's system yet, his offensive, all of his sets and stuff. And you can really see that sometimes. I think we're a little impatient at times, a lot of possessions. Some of the guys aren't really playing within the offense every possession, and there's a lot of like isolation or just dump downs. So yeah, I mean, if not for guys maybe still learning the system, it would look very similar. Schmidt, no matter who he has, is gonna just, it seems like at this point, just play that same system. He's not gonna really adjust his system based on his players too much.
I'm curious about what your front court kind of looks like, for the majority of minutes, because one thing that we've had trouble with over here is guarding a true four-man. That's really where this team has gotten just absolutely torches. It's a prime reason why we dropped that game to SIUE. Are you good? Do you guys have a guy like that Billiken fans may want to be aware of?
Well, I mentioned him earlier. Jan Farrell's the guy who's getting the lion's share of minutes at the 4 spot. I don't know if I would call him a traditional 4-man. On a lot of teams, he'd probably be a 3, a small forward. But he has been a phenomenal rebounder. I think he's averaging close to double digits, probably rebounds. He's scoring at all 3 levels. He's very, very smooth, but also can be aggressive. He's the real bright spot this year. So if you're asking about a 4-man, he's not our traditional 4, but he's the guy who's playing that position. He's really been one of our best players, I would say. Probably Banks, but he's a little hot and cold. Farrell's been awesome so far as a freshman. And I feel like our backup for Anquan Hill is a lot different. He's much more slender, a little bit taller, but he's not a strong big body 4 whatsoever. Although he can step out and take threes, he hasn't been good at taking them. But I feel like he'll have a red light at this point. Yeah, I would say the 4 spot is pretty good for us right now.
What about a guy like Barry Evans? I'm kind of looking at his, 6'8", 205. He's averaging about 5 and 4. Is he kind of subbing into that 4 spot as well, or is he just kind of a long wing?
This is one of my only gripes with Schmidt. He locks guys into one position. Barry Evans is locked into the 3 spot. He will not move Barry Evans to the 4. He will not move Moses Flowers down to the 2. And in an era of positionless basketball, that's not really how you want to do it. You need to be fluid and have there's a lot of combinations that I want to see that we are just not seeing because Schmidt is locking guys into one position. He's done that for a while. Some of it might be that these guys just don't know multiple positions in the offense. Yeah, they're still learning their own positions, some of them probably. So Evans has been my biggest frustration this year. Not him in general, but his playing time. He still starts, but the last few games, his minutes have really dwindled, and that's because Moses Flowers has bloomed, I guess. He's playing a lot better. He was not looking confident early in the year. He's looking really good now, and I don't think it should be an either or between Evans and Flowers, but that's what it is. So Evans' minutes have fallen at the expense of Flowers. So I don't think you'll see much Barry Evans. He is 6'8", but he's not a power forward. He's only playing the 3 if he's in the game.
Where has St. Bonaventure really excelled this season? Like what does the game look like for Bonaventure if you're sitting back on the couch and you're like, all right, it's going right for us this game?
It's one of the more contagious shooting teams I've seen in a while. I feel like if one guy's off or if shots aren't going early, that's kind of how it goes the rest of the game. Once one guy starts hitting, it seems like all other guys start hitting too. That happened against UMass. Banks was hitting, and then Farrell really started hitting in the second half. Flowers was good. So the other thing is, I will say this team has been really bad on the road. So that's good for you guys. This is in St. Louis. We have not won a road game yet. I will say if we can beat George Mason, I would say we're kind of going into St. Louis playing with house money. And I think they'll be a little bit more relaxed, which could be good. But to answer your question, it's the 3-point shooting. If Banks is going 1 of 8, 1 of 9, we're probably not going to win. if he's hitting 4 or 5 threes like he has in most of our wins, that seems to be the bellwether. Like Banks went 6 of 12 against UMass, his second 30-point game of the year. He plays the 2. I'm not sure how good your guys are defending, or at the shooting guard spot, defending the 3. I'm sure I could just click real quick and look. But yeah, if we're hitting early, it might be a long night for St. Louis. If not, like it could be a blowout.
It looks like defense is kind of the calling card for this team. It looks like rebounding maybe isn't a strong suit, but defense certainly is. Have you felt like, even as you say you struggled a bit on the road, and have lost 4 straight coming into the that surprising, quite frankly to me, blowout win over UMass, has the defensive effort always been there? Is it really just offensive inconsistency that you're battling?
I would say for the most part, the defense has always been there. This team, which is a lot different from past years, like our 3-point defense has driven me crazy for as long as I can remember, giving up wide open corner threes constantly. This team has been not just one of the best teams in the A10 at defending the 3, really one of the best teams in the entire country at defending the 3. And they've played pretty good shooting teams like Notre Dame, really good shooting team. Southern Indiana, I know it's their first year in D1, but they're a really good 3-point shooting team. And some of the other, like Iona, I think, UNI, there's been a couple, and we've really clamped down on the perimeter. So a longer team, I think, than last year, better perimeter defense. I think the guys just look more energized. Last year was kind of, especially in January, around this time of the year, there was no energy. So against UMass, they were super energized. So I think, yeah, defense has been a plus spot.
You mentioned a corner 3, and I kind of wonder if there was one in the last couple of years that maybe stuck in your mind, that maybe a corner 3 that Bonaventure took that didn't go in. Is there one that you might think about? I don't know. Maybe it was in Brooklyn, perhaps. I don't remember.
Hold on, I just lost my signal. You just talked about it's tough to get signals up here and stuff. Your question cut out. Sorry.
Of course it did. Of course it did. No. So what do you think? You mentioned a little bit, you kind of touched on it as far as what could be a blowout in the Billiken favor. What's a time where you're like, your butthole is puckered, and you're like, what does Bonaventure basketball look like where you're just really not enjoying the game?
Like, what's an example of a game where that's happened?
No, like what are they doing? What are they? Where are the mistakes? Like, what are you seeing in the game that's like, okay,
Gotcha.
This is trending poorly. So like, what are Billiken fans looking at the Bonaventure? Like, if we're seeing the Bonaventure Bonnies doing a certain thing, we should be feeling better.
If we're taking fadeaway mid-range jumpers that are not within the offense, that's not good. That happens a lot. Daryl Banks is really good when he can step into his shot, when he's catching and shooting. There's just too many times it seems like him and Flowers taking really low efficiency fadeaway, contested mid-range jumpers, and it seems like they kind of get into a rut when they do that, and it's tough to get out of it. The other thing I would say, we've been so good. I mean, we had 4 years of Adams and then 4 years of Loft, and so good at not turning the ball over. Turnovers have been a big issue this year. Luke, I like him. He's super lightning quick, very athletic. He does a lot of things well. Got to cut down on the turnovers, though. So Schmidt says, hey, 10 or less turnovers a game. That's where we want to be. That's something to look for. I'm not sure exactly how many times we've hit that threshold, but I don't think it's been many. There's been some games where we've turned it over 10 times in the first half.
Luke was actually going to be the next guy I asked about. So now I'll just give you the question. If you're looking at this game based on whatever you know about St. Louis so far this season, based on however things are going on your side, who are you looking at as kind of the key player in the SLU game? And I know you do have another game before then, but who would you either pick as the guy who's probably the most well-positioned to have a good game, or who you would really like to see step up and have a big game against SLU?
Foul trouble with our big men has been a major issue. I mean, they all get like 3, 4, 5 fouls a game. So I would look to Chad Venning. Maluk, one of the backups, did play well against UMass, but Venning is really the true A10 big man. So he has a tendency to get into foul trouble. He can't play super long stretches. He's a big body, like 6'11", 270, 280. He's got really good footwork, really good hands, nice touch around the basket. If he can stay on the court and not get into foul trouble, I think that's going to help us a lot. Because SLU's usually, I'm assuming again this year, big, physical, good rebounding team. Maybe not as much as the past days of some of the guys used to have, like French and those guys. But if you can get Venning into foul trouble early, which hasn't been too difficult to do for most teams, that's a matchup issue that could be really bad down low. And that's where we lose a lot of, especially if Maluk's in and Hill is in at the 4, not a very good rebounding front court whatsoever. So I would say Chad Venning on the Bona side, hopefully can show up and stay out of foul trouble, play 20 minutes and put together a good effort.
My last question is, who on the Billikens concerns you matchup wise and why?
I would say obviously Collins, the best player. Luke was playing almost the whole game. He's an undersized, he's probably 5'9", 5'10". However, we got our other point guard, Brett Rumpel, back from a broken foot. He played well against UMass. He's bigger. He's probably more Yuri Collins size. He has looked really good defensively. So I'm interested. I'm worried about Collins, obviously. I'm interested in how much Rumpel will play, if he'll be able to D up Collins. Luke's lightning quick and Rumpel has really good footwork. But again, he's a freshman. He's playing in his 3rd or 4th game ever at the D1 level, and he's going up against Collins. So that's definitely a matchup issue there. I know that's the obvious answer. But unlike years past, we've been really good at defending the 3. So obviously a guy like Jimerson or Pickett or Thatch could go off, but they don't worry me as much as years past, I don't think. And as I say that, they'll hit like 8 threes each.
Dear Lord, we hope so. Yeah. SB, Unfurled, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and let people know where you can be found on social media, and tell us about the survivor pool, actually, just for fans that maybe don't know.
Yeah, it's just SBUnfurled. The survival pool, we topped last year's numbers. We got like over 200 entries. The pot's probably, it's between $3,000 and $4,000. It's you pick a team a week. It's just like the NFL survival post. You pick a team a week in the A10 that you like, that you think is going to win. If they win, you move on. If they lose, you are eliminated. And you can't pick the same team twice. It's really fun. Something different than just betting on the games or doing a fantasy league or something like that. So it's worked out well, similar to the NFL, because there's about the same number of games a week to pick from. And it's also good, gives you a little bit of a rooting interest and maybe some excitement watching a game that you otherwise wouldn't have watched, like LaSalle versus VCU or something.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, and always love to banter with the Olean faithful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, man. Good luck. What do you got? St. Joe's next, and then
UMass.
Oh, you got UMass next. Well, good luck against them. Hopefully Frank Martin doesn't have a total meltdown like he did in the Riley Center.
No, we hope he does.
We hope he does. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless all the Bic Razors in the Amherst area.
Yeah. But hey, I think we played twice this year, don't we? Maybe no, we don't. We only play once. I was gonna say maybe we could get you on ours. A little home and home, but
well, anyway, thank you again. Yep, so much, and enjoy your evening, and Happy New Year.
Hey, you too, man. See ya.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Good luck this year.
Thanks. Later.
Huge thank you to SBUnfurled for popping in and giving us a preview of the Bonaventure Bonnies. Pete, good to talk to him. He always has great info, and of course, wonderful to banter with our friend from Olean.
Yeah, there's just a cultured lot up there. He's a really good guy, knows his stuff. and it's good to get his perspective on the roster. It's not necessarily, the guys that he seems kind of high on or not as high on is maybe different than what you would think. Looking at the numbers, not having watched them every single game the way he has. So always helpful to get that perspective as well.
Especially impressive sound quality given his distance from real civilization. So hey, good on him for paying extra for that city internet. Let's go around the A10, Pete. Wednesday the 28th, Richmond beats Coppin State 83-65 in the second to last, the penultimate, if you will, non-conference game for an A10 school. Dayton in the A10 opener beats Duquesne 69-57. This was a no-win situation for me. I didn't want to see either of these teams win. Obviously, Dambrot for Duquesne draws my ire, and of course Dayton stinks on ice in general. Davidson beats Fordham 57-43. Fordham gave them all they could handle for a good while in this game.
Just a grinder of a game. It was up at Fordham too. I honestly didn't quite know what to expect in this one, with Davidson kind of down and Fordham looking a lot better. But yeah, Fordham just couldn't score.
It was weird to see Rose Hill Gym crowded. Things are, the Bronx is not burning this year.
Right. 12-1 before that game.
It's on fire, but it's not burning, Thursday, the 29th, LaSalle in the final A10 non-conference game beats Howard. It's really easy to win when you're just playing against one guy, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, like when you play Lamar is another one.
Howard and Lamar should get together.
Yeah, that's right.
Then, a
lot more evenly matched.
Exactly. 72-61. George Mason beats Richmond 62-58. This is Saturday. Sorry, the 31st. The full slate of games on Saturday the 31st. Duquesne over Rhode Island 72-61. My survivor pick of the week. Looked a little iffy in the beginning. I think I texted you, why did I pick Duquesne? George Mason beats Richmond 62-58. I think this was kind of a shocker. Although it was kind of a toss-up in a lot of ways. I think George Mason on the road was kind of the one was kind of like the one we would give the as Mooney being the coach that he is, the guy he does a little bit less is more, or less with more, like Schmidt does. So weird to see them lose at home. Bonaventure rolls UMass 83-64, as we talked about on the Bonaventure preview. VCU beats LaSalle 80-67. Another one that was close for a long stretch of the game, and this was our podcast pick of the week for the Survivor pool. I was a little nervous, but VCU, because LaSalle was winning, like
for a lot of the first half,
doing really well in this game, and Rothstein was going to be upset about that weekend in Europe, whatever the hell he says. Dayton 69, nice. Davidson 55. George Washington 97, Loyola 87 at Loyola.
Oh, I can't wait to play that Loyola defense, man. Wow.
Ryan Palaio is elated. Anyway, we have the Survivor picks of the week. Of course, we mentioned around the A10, but just to reiterate, my pick was Duquesne over URI on the 31st. That was a win. Podcast was VCU over LaSalle on 12/31. Like I said, LaSalle made us nervous, but VCU pulls it out, and that's a W for the show. Peter, your pick, January 4th. What is it?
I've got Richmond over GW, and I got to say, after GW scores 97 in Chicago and Richmond loses at home to Mason, I don't feel as good about that one. But if the A10 is anything this season, it's wildly inconsistent. So who knows? Could be a different story on Wednesday.
Yeah, you do have time. I think there is a slate of games on Wednesday, including a bunch
but I
of
could
teams.
Switch it.
I think you can.
I feel, I don't know. I feel like just got to stick with it.
Trivia question of the week, Peter. In the past 40 seasons, how many times after Ecker, this is the AE era, how many times has SLU finished in the top 3 of the conference? This was a hot button issue after the SIUE game. A lot of people reminding that Travis Ford had not finished within the top 3 of the conference. But Pete, which coach has the most top 10 finishes since the 80s?
Yeah, top 3 finishes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So in those 40 years, SLU has only done that, finished in the top 3 12 times. And most of them happened in that first coach right after Ecker, which was Rich Grauer. Not super surprising when you think about it, given that that may have been the conference we were most competitive in. It was the smallest, certainly. Before we go to Conference USA, which is this bloated, huge geographical conference with a huge disparity in quality with, Cincinnati and Louisville and Memphis at the top and Tulane and Southern Miss and East Carolina at the bottom. But regardless, it's only happened 12 times in 40 years, which is kind of not great. And we need to see some more of that for sure. You think it's in the A10, that should be one of those things we see more often than not. And that certainly has not been the case.
Yeah, I think I got to look again then to see, if we're gonna maybe put an asterisk on those Grauer years due to being a smaller conference. Hey, I mean, it could be even worse, honestly, in the post Grauer eras. So, congrats to Brian STL on Billikens.com. He got it right. He got the coach right. Our question for this week, since the program's inception, SLU men's basketball players have come from 38 different states. Which 12 states have never produced a men's basketball player? This is absolutely this is a Brian Kunderman-esque pull from you, and I had no idea this was here until about 5 seconds ago.
I'm watching your face as you're reading this question, and I it's so absurd. It's such an absurd question, and it's something that I had myself stumbled across as I was kind of doing some research once, and it's a ridiculous question. No one would know this off the top of their head. You just kind of have to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those questions where it's kind of closest to the pin wins. Whoever could get the most of these 12. And by the way, I do want to give the disclaimer. We're not talking about prep schools. Like if a guy did a prep school for a year or two in another state, it's like, where is he from? Like where would he have gone to high school from if he went to high school at home?
All right.
That's the question. And that really doesn't change the answer a lot, but it could be a factor if you're looking for a hint. So what are the 12 states that have never produced a men's basketball Billiken?
I think this is a perfect time as any, I think, for a giveaway. What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not like a easy one to like look up.
That's right.
It's damn near impossible.
It is.
I don't know how you even did this. Like, I don't know where you how long this took you. I'm a little concerned that you're shirking your parental duties over there.
I'm not going to give up my methodology here because I don't want to give any more hints than we already have. But yeah, we do have a giveaway prize. It's a pretty nice hoodie, actually. Yes. And we will send it to whoever wins this week's trivia question. And I'll put this out after we publish the show. We'll put this out on social media, put a picture of the giveaway. If you're like a large XL, this is going to be right in your wheelhouse. It's a large that runs very large, but it's nice.
How do we want to do this? Do we want to do like an official, send us a DM? Because we don't want to, so I think the way we do this is the most in a DM, send us a DM with your answer, the most right with none wrong.
Do we have to do DM or do we do it we could just do it public and not
say anything. Okay. Public
and just not
the most right. Either if you don't get any wrong or if everybody gets one wrong, at least the most right with the least wrong.
Correct. Yeah. We're not going to allow you to name 20 states.
Right.
And the 12 happen to be in there. Give us 12 states.
Yes.
Give us just 12 states.
Your answer has to be, it cannot be more than 12 states.
Correct.
You cannot give us more than 12 states in your answer. I think that's great. So here's what, okay. This is too long, didn't read. If you got annoyed with our figuring this out on air, reply, quote, tweet, whatever you want to do, comment on YouTube, comment on Instagram, whatever, with 12 states. 12 states exactly.
And when we post this tomorrow on Twitter, Instagram, we'll put it on Billikens.com as well. We'll be as explicit as possible.
Yes.
And as concise as possible.
Yes.
Which, as you saw us just figure this out as we record, and we don't have a producer who's going to edit that down.
No.
We promise it'll be concise, unlike us on this show.
Yes. But you know what is concise, Pete? How quickly I can run through a jar of 2 Men in a Garden salsa.
I don't know if that's the best.
It's not even,
that.
it's not even close to my best transition,
but I will be concise with my ad read this week because I want to be short and sweet and to the point because,
the pickles are sweet.
If you like them that way, but the reason is because I just want to underline the fact that they have $9.99 nationwide shipping, and it's been that way for a long time. And in an era of inflation, in an era of going into the grocery store, and there are things that are double what they used to cost, and FedEx and UPS packages are like double what it used to be to ship something. As I'm sure everybody is discovering this holiday season, $9.99 shipping for every order placed on 2meninthegarden.com. So order something online. If you're like me, if you're not in St. Louis, if you're not a St. Louisan, you're listening to us somewhere else, order this stuff online. $9.99 flat rate shipping is really hard to beat anywhere these days. So go support them, 2meninthegarden.com.
Pete, the women's basketball team, a definite mixed bag this week. A 60-47 loss versus Loyola on Wednesday, the 28th. Loyola is a very, very bad team. And Pete, this game was the exact antithesis of entertainment. This might have been like the toughest game to sit through. It was bad.
It's obvious why when you look at the numbers too. This is just a stinker. So it was 10-10 after.
And I'm not even
talking
about Billikens specifically. I'm talking about both teams.
Yeah.
Like it was like watching the CYC game at halftime.
But it was really a stinker on the SLU side. So this was 10-10 after the first quarter, which is already not much of an entertaining score in a 40-minute basketball game. So Loyola never really ran away with this one. They just kind of inched away over time. And the reason they did that is because SLU had a brutal shooting night. 238 from the field, 0.000 from three, meaning they went 0 for 15.
They did a Blutarski
GPA from the 3-point line. They actually shot free throws pretty well, 77.3%, but they were 15 of 63 from the field. 0 of 15 from three. If they have even a below average shooting night, just a regular old shooting night, this is a completely different game. And I bet you know before I say it, McMakin did not have an efficient night, Zach. She went 8 for 8 from the line, but she was 4 of 20 from the field, 0 of 7 from three, somehow still ends up with 16 points because she was good from the free throw line. But man, oh man, this was just not their night shooting the basketball.
No, it really wasn't. It was tough to watch. It really was. Both teams, the rebounding, the defense, it was not there. And when the shooting is not there in women's basketball, unfortunately, it is at times unwatchable. And this was one of those games. This was a tough one in a lot of ways. I think we talked about it. Have we talked about it on the show? We did. We didn't talk about this game on the show, but it was very, very odd in this one. I'm just literally going to tell you exactly what I saw. I'm not going to editorialize any of it. I don't really believe in editorializing of something I don't know. But from, I got to the game about 15 minutes before tip, 10 minutes before tip. There were 4 band members at this game. And at about 5 minutes to go, a little bit before the Billikens came out of the tunnel, they were packing up and returned all of the band equipment to whatever storage facility. I don't know. I don't remember really exactly how that works or know if it's changed since I was there. But yeah, they packed up, and I think 3 people stuck around. They watched the game. I believe they conversed with Janet Oberly at halftime. It was an odd conversation. I was way across the arena, but I kind of, got to see the body language and the way they were chatting. There were weird things about it. Just kind of, I couldn't tell if it was a positive conversation or a negative conversation. And then at the end of the game, really just a poor decision, I think, on whoever was running promotion or whatever they were doing. I have no idea who was running this or who made the decision to do this. Yeah, they decided to do the Billiken clap, and they brought over a bunch of kids to help out. They called them honorary band members, which was super cringy. It felt really weird, really dirty, gross. It was really bad. I've never wanted to crawl under my seat at a Billiken game, based on something off the court more. And that is somewhat of an editorial, but it's exactly how I saw it. Since it's something I can speak on. Yeah, just a weird situation, Peter, in this one. And it may be trending to where we don't have a band on the 7th.
It's really weird and really cringy. And I don't, I just don't get it. I just don't, like, why try and force things? I just don't understand the approach at all.
Yeah, I think some of it is controlling the narrative in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and just I don't know, just make this work, guys. Like, you're on the clock. If we SLU basketball has had a ban for 40 years, uninterrupted, and it's been one of the major bright spots of this program in times where things weren't good on the court, and they've shown up. They're volunteers. I've talked to a lot of people, and if Austin Turner quit, I'll quote, Austin Turner's an unbelievable guy, an unbelievably nice guy. If he resigned, if he felt it was time to bounce, and that I'm paraphrasing, if he felt it was time to get out, he must have really been ground into the dirt, and just totally exasperated with the whole situation. So, yeah, concerning. We need to have a ban on the 7th, Pete.
Yeah, and I don't know what changes between now and then, but we certainly do.
Pete, we did reach out to Annie Reese. She is the member of the athletics department that handles as part of her role is a liaison to the band. I'm sorry if that's not I'm sorry if I'm not doing justice to your role, Annie. I apologize. The university is currently closed, however, until January 1st. So we did not get comment. We just got an automatic reply, totally understanding there, but we will update you if on Twitter. Keep an eye on our Twitter, because we will follow up on Twitter, and then of course our next episode.
Yep.
Sunday, today, right before we record this, well, not right before, but a little bit before, the Billikens get an 86-83 road win in OT at VCU on Sunday the 1st. This is a VCU team that we're not used to seeing, man. They are really not good.
No, I think they were 3-9 heading into this game. And it looks like one of those, you're like, yeah, it's a road game, and we just stunk it up at home against a team that's not very good, that's new to the conference. And you just don't know what to expect. But SLU comes out in this game, Zach. They had a nice first half offensively. They finished well. And then in the second half, they had as high as a 13-point lead. I mean, you wouldn't know it from looking just at the box score, because I think the lead opened up and then compressed by the end of the quarter. But this was a game that SLU had a chance to command anyway.
I think
certainly had a chance to win all along.
Well, I think you make a good point there, is that the one thing I will say is that the lead opened up and compressed within a quarter. It wasn't just a terrible ass quarter. Like,
right.
we were consistent throughout the entire game.
Right. Exactly. And, it was just a shame that at the end they've got a 4-point lead with about 25 seconds to go and blew that.
No. VCU had the lead.
Oh, VCU had the lead.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm saying this backwards.
I know but that's when I texted you, because I watched the game and I had to go get lunch. But I'm looking at the game, and I'm actually like at lunch, and I'm like, I look at the score and I'm like, oh shoot, I got to turn this on ESPN Plus. I turn it on, and by the time I get to ESPN Plus, the Billikens, it's like 24 seconds left. It's right exactly at this point. And the Billikens are, I believe they missed, McMakin took a turnaround jumper, and then the Billikens fouled. And I'm like, well, that was a dumb shot. And then VCU goes to the line and makes 2. And I'm like, okay, I'm turning this off. And then I go and look at the score 5 minutes later, and I'm like, wait a minute. What? Like, how did this game end up in overtime? And, it was just a gutty performance. And McMakin, I think she tied the game at the line at the end, actually. So, yeah. You know what? Kudos to these ladies for, battling to the final whistle.
Well, it's another one like they're who was their win over? Southern Illinois was one that got close, like they jumped out to an early lead. They let Southern Illinois all the way back into it, and then they just hit the gas and put them away. Illinois State was one. They wound up winning by 10. They do have the ability to really, gut out wins when they need to. This is one that I'm looking now. The lead was SLU did have a lead that was as high as 13 in the third quarter. So it's almost weird to see that at the end of the game, 48-35 was there halfway through the third quarter after Bree Johnson hits a 3-pointer. And then over the rest of that quarter, VCU kind of whittles it down to a 5-point lead by the end. And then, obviously VCU starts to run away with it the fourth quarter. It's just weird to see the lead change so drastically in this game, both directions. And look, like we said, this is 2 teams coming into this game who have a combined 7 wins. They're struggling this season, obviously struggling to close games out, but credit to SLU, never giving up in this one. And this is the kind of season where not winning many games, it's hard to find that, that extra little bit, on the road, to shockingly put this one into overtime.
I think that's where you really got to give it to Rebecca Tillett, because at the end of the day, if this team is struggling to understand her system or struggling to find kind of that cohesion, or, maybe just not that good, right? They're just not that good in her first season. She's trying to institute a system, institute a culture, and this is a culture type win. This is a gutty, gritty, character win to come in and to, you're down 4 with 24 seconds left. Like, yeah, that's still within reach, but it's also, it's not easy.
Right.
And it takes effort, and it takes belief in yourself. And like you said, when you're having a shit season, belief is hard to find.
And I think this was an even wilder finish than we're giving it credit for. I'm looking at now at the play-by-play, 21 seconds. You've got VCU up 4 after hitting a pair of free throws. SLU takes a timeout. 3 seconds out of the timeout, McMakin hits a 3. VCU takes a timeout with 18 seconds left, and they play it down. Somehow they get it all the way down to 4 seconds before McMakin fouls. VCU misses the first free throw and makes the second, right? So now they're up 2.
And then SLU will advance the ball on a timeout.
Yep. And all of this is happening with 4 seconds left. And they get it to a streaking Kennedy Calhoun, who was fouled basically immediately. And no time ticks off. She hits both free throws to tie it. And VCU had a 3 at the buzzer to try and win it, and they missed. And then, as we know, SLU pulls it out in OT. So kind of an even wilder finish than we realized.
Yeah, just
not having seen it live, I couldn't see this one live, but and you didn't see it either. It's just it looks like it was even crazier than I understood.
Pete, did you go into McMakin's the record and who held it?
So McMakin scoring 40 breaks Harissa Lish's record of 37. It's the 9th 40-point game in D1 this season, first in the A10. She went 14 of 33, 6 of 13, 6 of 8. So yeah, sorry, Harissa Lish, no longer number 1 in the game scoring records.
That is crazy. I honestly might go back and just flip this on and watch the second half, because I really think most of this was done in the second half.
Right.
Like she went absolutely crazy in the second half because she played well in the first. She had a couple really nice shots. They kind of run that like flare, that flare off ball screen where McMakin kind of curls around and the ball goes over the top of the screen. And she knocked down a really nice jumper, really smooth, silky smooth jumper. But yeah, I got to go watch the second half of this thing. Julia Martinez finished with 9 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 5 steals, but also 5 turnovers. However, Pete, this is news. Like this was news to me today. She leads the nation in steals now, as our good friend West Pine Bills pointed out. They have played a ton more games, not a ton more, but a few more. Now, this means we have 2 players leading the nation in a statistical category, because Brooke Flowers still leads the nation in blocks because she had 4 to go with 9 points and 6 rebounds.
She did, yeah, already leading the nation in blocks coming into this one, and adds another 4. I think she's probably got a better chance to hang on to that national title than Martinez does. Just because, as you say, that one's a little bit closer, and I think SLU has played like the maximum allowable games in non-conference. So we'll see if other teams are kind of able to make that up, and certainly other teams are going to have a shot to go pretty deep into the postseason as well. So anyway, yeah, I think Flowers has a really good shot to take that one all the way to the end. Hopefully Martinez does too, though. Fingers crossed. Two last things on the women's basketball side. Flowers number 1 in the country in blocks. Martinez number 1 in steals. You'd think this team had a formidable defense, but they're 5-12. I know.
Is that an indictment on everybody else defensively?
I think they're just learning how to play defense as a team. The couple of comments that I really did hear clearly from Coach Tillett when I was at the Carbondale game live, it was really all about communicating with each other on the defensive end is really what it came down to. I think that's one of those things they're going to get better as the season goes on at, but it's really a matter of doing this multiple years. And unfortunately, we're not going to have Flowers coming back, and we're not going to have the same collection of players playing a longer term. But I think we have 2 players who are really skilled in certain things, and unfortunately, the team defense isn't quite what it needs to be. I don't think they're a horrible defensive team. They've played a tough schedule. They're going to be competitive in the A10, but just something we'll be keeping an eye on the rest of the year.
This team's really missing consistency. I think that's obvious with how we've seen the stark contrast in quarters in this season. Consistent focus, consistent effort, consistent communication. The lapses absolutely kill them. When they lapse, they get absolutely torched big time. For 10, 15, 10 point runs at a time. So next up for the Billikens, Saturday 7th at St. Joe's. Pete, one little soccer note before we get out of here. Andrew Heckenlabel, 2024 commit out of Ankeny, Iowa. He's a forward. He's 6 feet tall, 155 pounds. Centennial High School. He plays his club ball for VSA Rush. Pete, this number one class, or sorry, I spoiled the point of this next bullet. This 2023 class, man.
Yeah, I mean, 2023 is ranked number 1 in the country. It's a really deep, solid class. We've got some nice players coming out of high school, a couple transfers coming. But now we're getting 2024 dominoes starting to fall, and it's just becoming clear that the program isn't just in good shape right now. It's set up to be solid for a really long time. Anything can happen in the transfer portal these days too. But I think the bottom line is, SLU, when you're a program that puts 6 guys into an MLS draft in one season, and then another guy that the following season, players notice that. They want to play pro, and SLU is a great path to that if you're not the kind of guy who's going to be able to go pro right out of high school.
We really talked about, in that interview with Johnny Klein, about the vision of this program by Kevin Kalish. And I think it just continues. And I'm so excited for the fall. Obviously, I'm not looking past the rest of this basketball season, but summer is going to be a season of anticipation, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up the week in Billiken athletics. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP, and on Instagram at Midtown Mad Pod. If you have any suggestions, we definitely appreciate hearing them. Send them on over. Go subscribe to the show, leave us a review, drop 5 stars, all that good stuff, Pete. As always, go Bills.
Go Bills.